Welcome to the Teapot Reads. I'm the Teapot. This is what I'm currently reading, and I'm so happy to see you today. Welcome back to my channel. We're wrapping up the year. It is nearly the end of 2021, and I am still thinking it is 2020. The year that never ends. But with the wrap up, you've probably noticed quite a few uptick in videos like my best of, my worst of, ranking this, ranking that. And this is a continuation of that. This is ranking every manga series I started and or continued, read part of basically this year. And my manga is, I shelve it in a pile next to my bookcases and is not really easy to dig through. And so I hope you will forgive me for just putting the images here and not actually holding up the books themselves. I also don't have all of them. So I am ranking these. It's going to be worst to best. So like best is up here, I guess. I had a little bit of a struggle, especially with the better ones. The ones I disliked, those are really, really easy to be like, that was the worst. I also, I feel like I read a lot of manga this year, but I didn't read that much. To be fair, I did really only start getting back into it this summer. So I've only been reading it and getting back into it over the course of about 6 months. If you're curious about deeper thoughts on any of these, I do have manga wrap-ups that I post every season. I'll link the most recent one above, and I'll link the most recent few. I guess there's only 2 of them. There's not like a many most recent, but I'll link them both down below. So our worst one, it takes the cake. It is called I Cannot Reach You. I only read volume 1. This is a gay high school story. I guess the 2 boys are childhood friends and they both are starting to feel something for each other, but the other doesn't know that. This was really bad. I really hated it. It really suffers because the translation was very subpar. It was a terrible translation. Words were missing, context was missing, phrases made no sense when the character spoke or when there were any sort of description. Most of the time, it just made things murkier. The art was fine. It was nothing to write home about. It was just very typical. I feel like I'm so harsh when I talk about this book, but it just really was bad. I walked out of it thinking that was such a waste of time. I really wanted to like it too because I didn't read anything else queer as far as I know. I don't think nothing I would overtly say was queer. There might be like queer characters, but nothing that focused on them, and I really want to. That's definitely something in the new year I want to move towards. But I Cannot Reach You is definitely not that read. Very, very bad. Then I read a series called Magical Miracle. This is a 6-volume series. I read it because a friend really wanted me to read it. I don't 100% regret it, but I really didn't like it. It wasn't for me. I feel like had I been reading it growing up, like she had, probably would have had a lot more nostalgia attached to it, and I probably would like it. But that wasn't the case. So Magical Miracle follows, it's a fantasy world, and it follows this student who is basically like grabbed off the street by one of the Grand Wizard, his friends. So the Grand Wizard is like this really powerful guy. He's just a kid. He's really powerful though, and he is very much a hero and just like a great person. And he has been missing. So his friend sees this student, this girl, and thinks she looks just like him. So basically the squad of friends convince this girl to pretend she is the Grand Wizard to help stave off questions about where he actually is. I love the concept. I think it's very clever. And I did like the squad. I thought they had a decent dynamic. I do take issue with the fact that we really didn't get that much of the squad. This series is only 6 volumes. It felt like it had been intended to be a lot longer because there are a lot of plot lines that are started or hinted at, and then they just never go anywhere. I don't know a lot about how manga is continued or chosen to continue, but I think I remember seeing somewhere that it's actually up to the magazine's that publish weekly or monthly. It's up to them to determine whether a series is going to continue, and sometimes they will just drop it off without giving an ending. I think what's really likely here is that the publisher was like, hey, we're not going to continue past a certain chapter, but please wrap it up however you like, because there is an ending to the story and it doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It just feels like it was rushed. The ending is this like time skip, and a lot happens in between like the events we know and the time, like the end, the time skip events. It is very unsatisfactory in a lot of ways. I do appreciate that there was closure for everything, like that it did end, but because it's so rushed, we don't get the character development, we don't get all these character interactions. The early chapters feel like there's a lot of time taken for them and for the characters, but the later chapters really don't. The reveal of where and what happened to the actual Grandmaster Wizard, or whatever his title was, is probably the most disappointing part. I actually thought I was misreading it when I got to it. I thought it was a mistake or a red herring, something like that. And I had to go through it a couple times before I was like, okay, well, I think I know this is what happened. And then it's so unsatisfying and disappointing. I would not recommend this series. I'm pretty sure it's out of print now. I'm grateful I read it because it's something that I read on behalf of someone else, which is really the only thing saving it from being probably first place, other than the fact that it was at least some sort of complete story. But I really, really would not recommend this series. Then, and I just finished this one recently, I read volume 1 of Freerun Beyond Journey's End. This actually just came out in English. I love the concept, and I really love the art. So Freerun is about a mage. She's an elf mage in a very D&D inspired type world. She is not immortal, but she has a huge long lifespan because she is an elf. And she was part of a party that went and defeated like the demon lord or something like that. And the story starts after the defeat. They all return home victorious. The rest of her party are not elves. There are 2 humans and a dwarf, and they all age a lot more rapidly. So at the very beginning, they return home victorious. Freerun decides to go off and pursue something else, and then she comes back to visit her friends just as one of them is basically on his deathbed, and that launches her into trying to discover what it's like to be alive, to learn more about humans, to sort of really enjoy living in the moment. It's really a cute concept. I thought the beginning was kind of drawn out. We spend a lot of time with Freerun just visiting people before anything really happens. She does end up getting an apprentice, and I think the first full chapter with her and the apprentice, I think that is when the story really starts to pick up. But even then, it feels very much like it wasn't heading in any direction until we get to the final chapter of volume 1, in which case an actual quest plot is laid out before them, and it's a quest plot I am really excited for. I do think that Freerun as a character also has a very slow build, but by the end of volume 1, I do feel comfortable with her and with Fern, who is her apprentice. I like them both a lot. I love Fern. I think Fern is sort of the MVP of this series, but Freerun really is a great character as well. She's got a lot of quirks, but I think the quirks really make her feel less like this immortal type being. I also love the D&D aesthetic. I don't know if I talk about it a lot. I'm really into D&D. I am part of a very long-running campaign that I absolutely love, and it's just it's probably the highlight of my week every week. So I loved looking at this theoretical, like, this is what happens to the party after you win the game. I think that is really neat and really fun and a really, really honest way of looking at it, because it's sad in a lot of ways. It's very sad because we get to watch Freerun watching her friends die and move on, and she just doesn't, like, she understands, but she doesn't 100% understand because she's so much young. Well, she's much older, but in her like timeline lifespan, she's on the younger end still. So she really can't comprehend what it's like to have had a full life. Not really. And she also desperately feels like she let her friends down by not getting to know them better and by not taking all the time in the world to just know them. which is sometimes ridiculous because she clearly knows them well, but feels like she doesn't. And I think that's really heartbreaking and really lovely in a way, because aren't we all sort of struggling like with that? We all have family and we all have friends, and I at least know I have the feeling a lot of times that I don't know anyone intimately, and like, not like intimately, but like emotionally intimately. Even when I might do so, I just don't always feel that way. So I think Freerun struggle is not just Freerun struggle. I think it's a little bit universal, and I thought that was a really lovely message. Then my most recent start of series, and actually most recent finished volume, are Girl from the Other Side. I read volumes 1 and 2. I have had my eye on the series for a long time. I think there's something really magical about the art. I think of all the art, this is the most distinct of anything else I've read this year, and I love it. It's so very cool. It's sort of a fairy tale about well, I shouldn't say it's a fairy tale, but it has fairy tale aspects. And the world of the Girl from the Other Side, there are the outsiders, or like the ones who live outside, and then the ones who live inside. The ones who live inside are regular humans. The ones who live outside are like monsters. And if you're touched by one of these monsters, you are cursed to become one of them. The story starts when Shiva, a very young girl, who I love her design. I think she's so cute. Although I do sometimes struggle with how old she is supposed to be. I thought she was really young, but then sometimes I get the sense she's not that young. So I don't know. I want to say she's like 10. Maybe that's on the high end. But we're going to stick with 10. She has been left by her aunt, or maybe not left by her aunt. That's part of the mystery. She's been left in the outside, and she has been taken in by one of these monsters that she calls Teacher, and Teacher is very careful. He won't touch her. He is taking care of her. He is teaching her things. It's very sweet. Their dynamic is adorable and lovely, and Teacher is just such a gentle character until he does something completely not gentle. Like volume 2 starts off with a very grotesque scene, and it's great. It works really well because it doesn't mar anything about the world or the world building or the characters that have been built. I am really enjoying Girl from the Other Side. I think it's slow, and volume 1 sometimes would lose me, but volume 2 really clinched it for me, and the story is clearly moving forward. It's a little bit slice of life, but it is clearly driven by a plot. My major issue so far is sometimes, as much as I love the art, sometimes because it is so dark, things are muddy and I don't really understand what's going on. This is a me problem because visually I'm not really good at understanding things. I'm not a very visual person, and sometimes I have a hard time reading situations, reading the room in real life. And also when I'm watching something or reading something that's heavy on the visuals, I have a hard time differentiating what's going on and where things are happening. And the darkness and the blurriness of some of these panels make it even more difficult for me. So that definitely is more of a personal issue, but it is something I want to take into consideration moving forward. And I do have to be a little careful when I'm reading. I've had to go over panels and pages several times to just make sure I'm catching it. I'm also a little concerned because my friend who finally got me to start reading this series, she really disliked the ending. I'm hoping the fact that I'm reading the volumes so close together will make it a little kinder of an ending, but we'll see because I'm not sure if it will. Overall, though, I think of all of these, Girl from the Other Side is the first one that I can definitively say I recommend this wholeheartedly. I think it's great. I think if you're looking to get into manga, maybe start with this one, especially if you're a big fantasy fan. All right, so these next 3, ranking them was a little difficult because I love all of them. I love them all so much. So in 3rd place, I know, like I said, I didn't read a lot of manga, but I think my top 3 are still really important. In 3rd place, we have Sweat and Soap. Oh my goodness, this is a story I never thought I would have picked up. It has really cringy covers for volumes 1 and 2, so I probably wouldn't have if someone hadn't convinced me to. Oh my goodness. I am on volume 8 right now. I actually just started it this morning, and I feel so happy to be back with these characters. Sweat and Soap is basically a rom-com, especially in its early chapters. It then kind of dives into something a lot more serious, but still very realistic and very comfortable. It's about these two, I want to say they're in their mid to late 20s. and they basically just begin a relationship. It's called Sweat and Soap because they work for a soap company. He's like the lead designer for Sense, and she is very sweaty, but he thinks she smells wonderful. And that's kind of how they get introduced to each other, and it's sort of a running theme. But the story really is about the two of them navigating life separately and then together, and what a relationship looks like, especially an adult relationship and a serious relationship. Like, they meet the families, they start living together, they have their first anniversary, they have a birthday together, they go on vacation together. It is so cute and so wholesome. And there is angst. I love angst. Angst is like my bread and butter. There is good angst. And it's angst that's not brought about by miscommunication. It's like actual issues they're having. Like, one of them feels like they've done something wrong but doesn't know how to communicate it, or is uncomfortable with something and doesn't know how to communicate it, but then tries to communicate it. And it's in that, like, trying to communicate it that makes it kind of angsty. But these two are great. They're very much couple goals. I'm sorry I can't remember their names. I don't really think about names a lot when I'm looking at art. Again, not a super visual person, but even worse am I at like connecting visual things with like names and words and written things and like vocal things, I guess. So yeah, I can't remember their names. I'm sorry. It's really cute. I really recommend this. If you are someone who wants to try manga but doesn't like fantasy, this is 100% the series I would recommend for you. It does get a little raunchy. We never see anything super explicit, but there are sex scenes on the page, and it's very clear that that's what's going on. They talk about sex, they talk about a relationship. It's also really, really healing, especially as someone in her mid to late 20s. I'm 25. There are moments that I'm like, wow, this feels so real. I love that someone is talking about this. And it's not like anything super big deal. It's just like little emotional things, but it's really great to see it on the page. And it's great to just watch this relationship bloom. So yeah, Sweat and Soap. Love it. That's my number 3. I will be continuing this. I know the series finishes next year in the English translation with volume 11. Then we have Spy Family. I have read the first 6 volumes. That's what's out in America. I love this series. It is so cute. Oh my god, it follows, just great characters. First of all, it's very, very funny. I think of everything on this list, Spy Family is the funniest. It's got sort of slapstick, but it's also just got really quick, witty timing with everything. So it follows a spy, and he is basically given a mission to infiltrate a school, but he can't do it, so he has to have like a fake family. So he adopts a little girl who he's pretending he's not a spy from, but she's a telepath. So she knows he's a spy. So this is Anya, the daughter, knows he's a spy. She's a telepath. And then he meets his wife, and she is an assassin, and she like is willing to marry him because she's trying to protect her identity, and she thinks she's starting to look suspicious. But she's keeping her assassin things from him and from the daughter, but the daughter obviously knows because she's a telepath. And it's just this like, it's hilarious because you have the spy, the assassin, the telepath. They're all trying to keep this information from each other. They're all trying to help each other. And it's set in this sort of Cold War Berlin type setting. It's not quite that. It's sort of a mix of a lot of things, but that's the general aesthetic. And that aesthetic does come through very nicely. There are also a lot of side characters. There aren't too many that it feels overwhelming. The ones that we really get to know are pretty great. One of them, the assassin, her name is her brother, I really hate. I really, really hate him. He's a trope that I despise. He's like the brother obsessed with the sister. I really, really dislike that. It's uncomfortable for me. But outside of him, I think that it's a great story. I love this so very much. It is great, and I can only recommend it 100%. And finally, my number 1, if you've been following for a while, you probably know what it is. It is Toilet Bound Cocoon. I am gaga over this series. It is so very, very good. I just love everything about it. Like, I could gush for hours probably. It is about a girl, Yashiro, who basically goes into the bathroom, does something similar to, like Bloody Mary. But Bloody Mary? That's what it's called, right? Or Candyman. Something like that. And does that with Cocoon, which is like a Japanese myth spirit. And instead of a schoolgirl, she gets this schoolboy named Hanako. And he's like, well, I can't grant your wish, but I'll help you in other ways. And she ends up getting in a mess, and he ends up turning the table on her and being like, well, why don't you be my assistant? So then she has to help him with the other spirits of the school. There's another character, Ko, who is great. I love him. I have thoughts, but I feel like that will be a spoiler, so I won't say anything. He is from a family of exorcists, and he's introduced as, like, originally going to try to exorcise Hanako, but Hanako's like, you can try. And then Ko's like, well, I'm just going to stick around until I'm strong enough. And the three become friends. It's, oh my god, it's so warm and fuzzy. It makes me so happy, this series. It is 100% the thing I love reading, the type of story I love. It really has that same spark that Noragami, which is my favorite manga series that sadly I didn't read any volumes of this year, but it has a very similar spark as that series. So if you're a fan of Noragami, definitely check out Hanako, vice versa. I love it. I very much love it. I won't say it's perfect. I do have sometimes that struggle of understanding what's happening visually on the page because the art is very lush. So sometimes there's just a lot on the page. But outside of that, it is pretty damn near perfect. And I hope this goes on for a very long time because I just need it in my life constantly. Just constantly in my life. So those are my rankings. That is my number one manga. Wow. I love it. I'm always so happy when a new volume comes in. I have them all pre-ordered, so when it just comes into work, I grab it and try to read it like within the next couple days. I will probably be continuing all of these series except for I Cannot Reach You, and obviously I finished Magical Miracle. Definitely Sweat and Soap, Spy Family, and Toilet Bound Hanako-kun. I'm going to give Girl from the Other Side. I'm going to continue Girl from the Other Side until it gets like disappointing, if it ever does. I don't know if it's a story that I'll be so invested in that I feel like I have to read every single volume. If like a couple volumes in a row really just annoy me or something. And Freerun, I'm definitely going to give at least 1 or 2 more volumes a try. If it really doesn't pick up, I will probably say goodbye to it just because, I don't know, I don't have that much time to read, unfortunately. So if it's not making me super pleased, why continue with it kind of situation. That is it for me. As you can tell, I get a lot of recommendations from friends and coworkers. So if you have a manga series you think I would like, please leave it down below. I'm always looking to expand my reading habits. And yeah, I have definitely a couple series on my radar that I really want to get to. I talked about them in my most recent manga wrap-up, so definitely check that out. And thank you so much for watching, especially if you stuck around this long. If you liked this content and you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. I would appreciate it a lot. I am not that far from my goal for the year, which is 200 subscribers, and I would love for that to be a Christmas present from you to me. Just saying. Just kidding. I mean, it would be cool, but no pressure. If you are here and you are already a subscriber, thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you can even comprehend. You mean the world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for watching my videos and thinking I am worth following and listening to. Like, it's very cool of you. It's very cool of you. If you are somewhere warm, I hope you're staying comfortable. If you're somewhere cold, I hope you're staying warm. And most of all, I hope you're reading a great book. I will see you guys next time. Bye!